What's good, combat sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of Combat and Kick It. You already know, it's your boy Bando. And UFC 297 was this past weekend, so I'm here with the review. So, fuck it, let's jump right into this shit. Let's go. Alright, if I'm being honest, that was easily the worst card of the year. Yeah, I know. Second card of the year, and it was not good. I gotta be honest, I'm being straight up, straightforward. It was not good, not impressive. There was nothing crazy to it. 8 out of 12 fights went to decision. The first 4 fights were exciting, heavy paced, and got finishes. 4 finishes. 4 finishes in a row to end up not having nothing except you actually end up having Neil Magny finishing Mike Mallet, which I'll get into that shit here in a minute. But man, oh man, not a good card. Not a good card. 0-7 for the Canadian men. Like, they did not show up. They did not show out. They did practically nothing. So that was a disappointment. I had a prediction that the Canadians were going to sweep the card. I was wrong. If you followed any of my parlays, I'm sorry. But shit happens. I can't get them all perfect, but I try. But let's review this shit. So, opening the card. Well, first off, let me give a shout out to Jasmine Jasudavicius with that insane performance against Priscilla Cachoeira, outstriking her, outlanding her 326-226 or 327-27. Unbelievable. That was the performance of the night. My performance of the night. Yeah, easily. But let's review this whole card. Or this main card. So, opening the main card, you had Movsar Evloev going against Arnold Allen. He beats him by decision. How was it? That was one of the most exciting fights on the card, honestly. Everything else was kind of slow-paced. This one had a heavy pace to it. Both men going at it. Both men working stuff. I felt like there was moments that I wish Arnold Allen would have just got going a little bit more. Like, if you look at him in that fight against Dan Hooker, he comes out guns a-blazing, swinging, ready to go. I feel like if he would have really just put that pressure on in that first round against Evloev, I think he could have had a much more successful night. But he did good in the first round. But so did Evloev. Evloev ended up doing good in 2 and 3, I should say. He ended up making good adjustments. He mixed in the takedowns, stuff like that, but still, Arnold was putting the pressure to him. Arnold was landing good shots, landing good combinations. It wasn't until Evloev started landing his boxing combinations himself, till, the judges' scorecards probably started changing a little bit. It could have went either way. I see how people went with Evloev. I wanted Arnold Allen to win, so I don't want it to be biased. But, it was almost him doing enough. But those knees in that clinch situation where they had to stop the fight, that's always a bit of an issue. So shit like that happens, slows down a fight, slows down the way the judges are looking at it. Both men are damaged, bleeding and everything like that. So it takes a lot. But that was a good fight. Yeah, Evloev needed to lose, though. I mean, he just needed to lose. Dude had a whole episode about talking about being with... I'm not even going to get into it. I'm not going to get into it. You guys, if you know, you know. You can go look it up. Fucking strange dude. But either way, I wanted Arnold Allen to win. I thought he almost got it. But if he would have done a little bit more, I think he would have. But moving on. Chris Curtis and Marc-Andre Barriault. A lot of people calling it a sparring match. I'm kind of on that same thing. I see where it was a sparring match. I listened to part of Chris Curtis's interview today, talking about if I landed some of them shots on people, they would realize it's not a sparring match. I get that, right? But the look of it, you got to realize what we're just seeing, what we're looking at. It definitely did have the looks of a sparring match. It had the looks of two guys that were in there, kind of putting shit together, throwing shit together, beating each other up decently, but not like fucking each other up. But they were putting hands to each other decent enough. It was okay. I thought it could have been more exciting. I thought it could have been more fast paced. I thought there could have been more done by both men. A little bit more work in that third round. There was definitely some work in that third round between Chris Curtis, but I don't know. It just wasn't that good of a fight. And that's all I'm supposed to be doing is reviewing the fight and saying whether it was good or not. It was decent. These guys both landed a couple of decent shots. Nothing that was crazy, nothing that was insane or anything like that. I do agree with the Chris Curtis getting the decision. He definitely won the fight. He did more in the fight. Marc-Andre Barriault looked like he was trying to clinch a lot, but Chris Curtis was winning every exchange in the clinch when they did go there. But it was kind of just like it looked like a sparring match. It didn't look like a brawl, like a real decent fight, but nothing crazy. There was nothing crazy in that fight. A couple good shots landed by Chris Curtis, but I felt like the way he fights, in the videos, in sparring, and fights with Sean Strickland and all this and stuff like that. Like, I feel like he could put more pressure on. He could have put a little bit more pace into it, but these guys are just out there having fun, putting the work. I agree with the decision, though. It definitely went to Chris Curtis. But moving on. You move on to Neil Magny and Mike Malott. And what, bruv, what the fuck? Dog. Mike, what were you doing, bro? You had it in the bag. Mike Malott had this fight in the bag. Minutes away from a decision, maybe even seconds. I don't even know when the fight ended, but it might have been seconds away from the decision. But he definitely would have ended up getting the decision. It was a boring fight. He wasn't doing a ton. He was outstriking him. He was working him on the ground. Neil really wasn't having any crazy success. Mike was landing a couple good leg kicks that were hurting Neil. But all of a sudden, Neil gets a reversal. Gets a reversal in the third round. Gets a trip of his own. Ends up in mount. Says, fuck it. Starts swinging. Just starts going for the ground and pound. Right? Putting the pressure to the ground and pound. And Mike Malott, he reminded me of Chris Weidman versus Luke Rockhold. If you've seen that fight and you've seen how Chris Weidman just laid on the ground taking those final shots, even though they weren't, I don't even think those shots finished that fight. But either way, the way he was laying down, just taking those shots, that's how Mike Malott was, man. That was like, he was just taking the shots. Like, he just accepted defeat. He literally just accepted defeat, and that was wild to see. That was wild to see because he basically had that fight in the bag. It's not like he did anything crazy impressive, but he definitely had the decision win, without a doubt. It was going to go his way, no doubt. Neil didn't have any success in the fight. Neil wasn't really doing much. Like I said, the leg kicks were bothering him. He was getting outstruck. He was getting out grappled. So every situation, every which way, Mike was going to win that fight. And Mike gets reversed in the third round and ends up losing via ground and pound by a veteran Neil Magny. Good win by Neil, dude. I mean, hey, you're never out. You're never finished until you're finished. So that sends a message to the rest of the guys. Like I said, Neil Magny's the gatekeeper. So that sends a message to the rest of the guys that are coming up that understand when they get that fight with Neil Magny, it means something. If you win that fight, you're breaking into the top 10. If you don't win that fight, welcome back to the prelims, son. Because you just got sent back to the prelims, Mike Malott. Truth be told, it's honest. I'm being honest. That's what happens. You get sent back to the prelims when you lose to the gatekeeper. And you lost to the gatekeeper. But this sends a message to these guys now. Same way with Ian Gary. Ian Gary didn't finish Neil Magny. These guys got to finish him. So whoever is that next that next guy, right? Whoever is that next big name that they're going to end up pushing and they put up against Neil Magny, brother, you got to get a finish. But moving on. We go to the co-main event. The co-main event was Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva. I'm going to be honest with you, okay? I'm not even going to lie to you. This is not even me trying to be rude or ignorant or an asshole. I fell asleep. I dead ass fell asleep. I mean, I was gassed. I fell asleep during that fight. But from the highlights and everything of it, seems like a very lackluster fight. It did seem like Raquel Pennington wanted it more, and Mayra Bueno Silva has no gas tank. So I got those two things out of that. You know, those are the only two things that I really got out of it. That Mayra Bueno Silva needs to work on her conditioning, and that Raquel Pennington was there to win, and she got it done. You know, the thing about Raquel Pennington is she doesn't have this style of a crazy finisher. She doesn't have a style of a crazy striker. She doesn't have a style of a crazy wrestler. She reminds me of early days of women's MMA. You know, type of chick, and that's what she is. She's been around since the early days of MMA, and it's crazy that she even got this opportunity, right? I mean, like, we're looking at a division that cut Talia Santos, or well, UFC that cut Talia Santos, not the same division. She was once in a division, but they cut Talia Santos, who could be a contender in either division, truth be told. And you had Raquel Pennington, who's been in there for, I don't even know how long she's been in the UFC. She's been in the UFC since there were sponsorships on the shorts. So that was before the Reebok deal, right? So she's one of the beginning guards. But good for her. I mean, congratulations off to her, man. She never stopped working to get to the title. So I can't knock her at all. Right, we expected the fight to be a little lackluster. Stylistically, the two of them weren't going to bring a ton. It was either Mayra Bueno Silva was going to bring a crazy finish in the first round, or Raquel was going to bring a crazy finish in the first round, or we were going to end up getting a 5-round pretty lackluster fight, and that's what we got. But the thing about it is, like I said in my last podcast, this was not a fight that anybody was prepping for, building, putting together. Matchmakers weren't sitting back saying that should be the fight. I don't even know really what came across this fight being made besides the fact that both these women won their last fight. So they put it together because of that. And to me, you know, that's why it didn't have anything to it. It literally had nothing to it. Nobody really brought the big attention to it. I think Raquel Pennington and Juliana Pena will actually have more to build off in the simple fact that they've both been in the game for a minute and from the same Ultimate Fighter class and stuff like that. So you're going to have something more to build off with that. That'll be a better fight. And but either way, shout out to Raquel Pennington, finally becoming UFC champion. Good for her. She got it done, so shout out to her. Moving on to the main event. Who do I think won? I'm going to get that straight out of the way. Who do I think won? I think Drakus won. Did I want Sean to win? Absolutely. Do I think Sean outstruck him? Absolutely. Did Sean outstrike him? Absolutely. Percentage-wise, I think it was like 76% to 67%. If I remember correctly, I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think it was 76% to 67%. Sean outstruck Drakus, but Drakus was mixing more up. When you mix more up, you put more into the game, you show that you have more in the arsenal. Whether or not it's doing a ton, it looks better on the judges' scorecards, the way these guys are going to judge it. Now, personally, I think Sean did more damage. You look at the damage coming from the headbutt, right? Take away the headbutt, Sean never gets cut. Does that shift the judges' scorecards a bit? I think it does. I truly do think it has something to do with it. When you look at Drakus, whose eye was swollen shut from Sean's jab, and then you look at Sean, who's cut up, and you don't really see until after or see the late replays that Sean got hit with a headbutt that cut him up. It's one of those things. But overall, both men fought pretty decent. I think Sean just needed to do more. Sean was stopping his punch. He was stopping combinations. He wasn't doing anything. He was staying with the Philly shell, right? leaning back. He was evading. His defense was great. I got to give him props. His defense was great. His jab was beautiful. He was sticking that jab. But I feel like in the first round that something should have followed the jab a little bit more. He should have got more looks from that. He was doing good work with the teep to the body in the early rounds. He completely abandoned that in the late rounds. I don't know what happened. But I feel like Sean just needed to follow up with more. When it comes to the strikes, when it comes to anything that he did, he needed to do more, and he just simply did it. He needed to throw more 1-2s, more hooks. The Sean that you saw in the last 20 seconds, the aggressiveness of Sean in the last 20 seconds of the fight was the exact Sean that you needed in the whole fight with a little bit more, you know what I'm saying? It was the last 20 seconds, so he wasn't going to be the cleanest, most perfectly technical freaking guy out there, right? It wasn't going to happen. He's in the last 20 seconds of the fight. He's a bit winded. He's just trying to slug it out. But if he would have been on that same aggressive, same path in the early rounds, I think he would have had a better shot. I think he needed to put Drakus on Drakus. Drakus was never on his back foot on Saturday. He was never once on his back foot. And that's a problem. When Drakus has you on your back foot, that's when he has the most success. He wasn't landing crazy, but he was able to mix things up. I thought Sean did well with the takedown defense. I thought Sean did well getting back up. It's a close fight that could have went either way. I wouldn't have been mad if it went to Sean. I am mad that it went to Drakus because I wanted Sean to win, but I just feel like when you look at it, and I didn't rewatch the fight yet, so this is still off of First Take. I feel like Drakus just mixed it up more. When you were watching the fight, it looks like, all right, this guy's actually doing something. Sean's just sticking the jab, but the jab was working. The jab was working. Overall, I would love to see a rematch. I know they're not going to immediately run it back. There's talks of Hamzat. There's talks of Adesanya. I know they're not going to immediately run that back. But if all else fails, I'm totally in for them to run that back because I think Sean will actually for once watch a fight back and say, what can I do different? Because he knows he can beat this guy. It's one of those things. I think Sean knows he could beat this guy. I think we know Sean could beat Drakus. But Drakus du Plessis is your new champion. It's wild to say that. Middleweight in the last 17 months has had 4 different champions. So the division is definitely shooken up. Can Israel Adesanya come back and take his throne back and become king again? Is Alex Pereira gonna drop back down to 185 and go double champ status on it? Sean gonna get a rematch? Are we gonna have somebody else come up? What's gonna happen? Is Drakus gonna be a long reigning champion? Who knows what is gonna happen? But middleweight division is officially shaken up. And coming up next, the next card is Roman Dolidze versus Nasruddin Imavov. So another middleweight matchup that now, because of the shakeup, it matters a bit to see where these guys can go. Any matchup in the top 10 matters now because middleweight division keeps getting shaken up. So either way, that's my review for UFC 297. Your boy always coming through. Like I said, all 2024. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and other days. If I feel like dropping videos on the other days, you're going to get videos on the other days. Don't worry about it. There's going to be stuff to watch. There's going to be content. More than your OnlyFans girlfriend. I promise you I'll have more content than her. I promise. No, I won't. She getting paid way more than me. Getting paid way more. But no. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification button so you know when the next episode is out. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Your boy's out. Peace.